everybody.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome to the Lighthouse Project. Let's go over tonight's kind sponsors. Israel Itzhak David Cohen Ben Esther for Yeshua's and Refuah's, physically, mentally, and spiritually. Dvorah Leah Bas Risa should come back and marry true Jewish zivug. And Yonasan Michael Cohen Ben Risa for success in finding a good job in all spiritual and physical brachas needed among Klal Yisrael.
Amen.
Amen. Anonymous, to dedicate it for themselves, to have clarity, getting a shidduch, having emunah, and seeing Hashem in their life all the time. Jack Ovadia, in honor of his in-laws, Yehoshua and Hannah Gabia, for giving him such a great wife and always being there for him. Tzvi Menachem ben Chaim Yaakov, in the merit that Hashem should give him and his wife Zizel Bat Sarah a lot of strength and comfort at this time, and for the success and growth of their business. And David Zorilnikov for blessings for his children, Yehoshua ben Zachariah and Orly Bat Zachariah. Thank you very much to all the sponsors.
Thank you. Okay, 1 second, we just get the recorder.
Sorry, one more, sorry. And also, his sponsor is in honor of the marriage of Moshe and Michelle Siegel. Hashem should bless them with Shalom Bayit, good health, Parnasa, and many children, and Refuah Shlema Menachem Mendel ben Sarabasha and Dvorah Fega Bat Rise.
Amen, amen. Okay, welcome to the Lighthouse. Guys, thank you for coming again. We have a dynamic teaching today. It's called Azamra. This is Rabbi Nachman's fundamental teaching. He says this is one teaching you're going to have to live your whole life with. This is something that I've lived my whole life with. Azamra is literally the key almost to all your problems. Because at the end of the day, most of our problems are the way we look at them. So Azamra is literally, Rabbi Nachman knew that this was the key to everything. Okay? So we know it's unbelievable how, more or less, you see now what's going on today. We see more people are focused on how burdened they are instead of how blessed they are. How stressed they are instead of how blessed they are. Why is it always that everybody's usually focused on what's wrong with them instead of what's right with them? It's like a phenomenon. It's always the same situation. Even you speak to people, they'll tell you, these are all my problems, instead of, oh, look at all the blessings I have. How come it's so easy just to forget about the good? Why is it so easy to forget about the good? It's something that you're going to see tonight. I'm going to talk to you about the science of it. Once you understand it, you'll realize completely, you have a whole different outlook, and you have to realize that in order to have happiness in our life, we have to practice happiness. We can't, it has to be created. It's not going to come to you. It just doesn't come to you. That means if your focus is not 100%, if a person's not constantly looking for happiness and looking for good points in his life, he's not going to get it. Because life, little by little, if we're not careful what we focus on, that's what happens. So, what Nachman's saying here is something very, very deep. He's saying here that clearly nowadays, if a person has unfortunately, because we haven't focused on what we're supposed to focus on, we create distorted realities. Let me explain to you a little bit about the science of how your brain works. If you understand the way your brain works, you'll have a lot of clarity, you'll understand. So if you guys remember, you probably remember every single time you got hurt in your life, correct? You guys you remember every time you got hurt. You don't remember sometimes how many times you got complimented. Somehow people that hurt you, it's more like all of a sudden your brain is basically telling you stay away from these people. How come it's so easy? You can get 10 good things happen to you one day, and next thing you know, a couple of things go wrong, and next thing you know, how come a person will only focus on that part of his life instead of the 10 things that go wrong? It should be even. I would say it should be even. So what happens is our brain is programmed to protect us. Our brain is not programmed to make us happy. So what happens is when a person gets hurt in his life, what happens, your brain protects you to be able to be not similarly hurt again by something similar. Many people that I'm dealing with in Balchuva, for example, while they were younger, maybe a rabbi told them something negative. So all of a sudden they see a bearded man, they associate, run. These people hurt people. So all of a sudden that's his story. So whenever he sees a rabbi, he won't even listen to the rabbi because of that one incident that he got hurt a long time ago. So our brain is there to protect us. Now, we have to use logic that not everything is danger, but unfortunately, sometimes we perceive things as danger. Many times I'm speaking to people, we're just working with limitations of their lives. You had a divorce. Next thing you know, they don't want to commit to another spouse because of the divorce. Meanwhile, that person has nothing to do with that person. It's a completely different person. One's Ashkenazi, one's Moroccan. Two different soups. It has nothing to do with each other. Right? But yet you're so afraid of the past because your brain says, listen, it's going to happen again. Now, why? Because this is the way your brain is programmed. Now, this is a problem. Why is this a problem? Because unfortunately, if you store all these memories together, then these memories eventually become a story. And that story is the story that many people are obsessed with, a certain story about their lives. And what happens when you have that story? Cortisol all of a sudden is running through your mind constantly, and it doesn't allow you to develop a new story because you're so drowned in that story. How come we speak to so many people about the past? Why is it so hard to get over the past if it's just the past? Why is it so hard for people to get forward? It's because your brain literally takes whatever experiences you had, bad experiences, to protect you, and it creates a spotlight effect. Like here, this is your problem. Stay away from anything like this. Stay away from rabbis. Stay away from these kind of people. Stay away from these kind of people. They will hurt you. So what happens? We create distorted, and all of a sudden we can live our whole lives with a distorted view of reality. This is the number one problem I deal with today. In addiction, in anything, the person is only coming because of a story that's not real. It's a story that they came up with based on the times they got hurt. Now, this is a problem because if you can get hurt in business, you're never going to invest again. You can get hurt in marriage, you're never going to marry again. It's a problem. So we have to understand, God recreates the world every single day. So we can't get stuck in these stories. We have to basically divorce the story and marry the truth. You got to divorce the story because the story is only a fragment of thoughts that were created and your brain stored them as danger. This is exactly how they train an elephant. We gave the example when an elephant gets trained. What happens when the elephant's younger? They tie a rope to the elephant, and they tie when the elephant's small. And what happens? The baby elephant pulls it and pulls it and pulls it and pulls it. So what happens? It remembers the rope. I can't do it. So what happens? The elephant gives up. So what happens now? When the elephant gets older, you see a little Indian with a big elephant with a little rope and a stick. How is the elephant not eating this Indian guy? How is that possible? It should run away, the elephant. It's 20 times as big but he remembers he can't do it. He sees the rope, he associates, I can't do it. Because that's what he put in his brain. That's how they train. So unfortunately, our childhood could be destroying our future because we've created these stories. So the key is we have to be able to recreate a new story. That's what the key is, Azamra. Because unfortunately, if we have these stories and we have these, our brain is not going to be able to develop any new. If a person is constantly stressed out, he's not going to be able to get out of a problem or come up with a solution for his problem. So a lot of people say, I'm burnt out. Why are you burnt out? Because you're thinking. It's not because of your actions. It's you're just thinking about what it means to you. So this is a problem with weight. You could say, listen, I tried losing weight. I tried this diet, so people give up. People give up very easy only because they believe because their brain is protecting them for not being hurt again. Very important concept. So already, basically, you're already against the odds, and you're predisposed to have negativity. So this is what Rabbi Nachman was telling us. You are predisposed to have negativity. Why did it say it's so hard for a person to be happy? He says one of the most difficult things for a person to do is to be happy. Because if you're not careful on what you focus on every single day, you're going to get drowned out because there's always going to be something wrong in life. It's going to be your marriage, it could be your parnasa, it could be your wife. Whatever it is, something is always going to be wrong. And your job is to realize, you know what? That's life. So what if something is wrong? This is good. These things are good. So Azamra means I will sing. I will sing with what I have, not what I don't have. That's why the term, we're black but we're beautiful, comes from where? Shir Shirim. Why do people say, I'm black but I'm beautiful? I'm blackened with sins, but I'm still beautiful. Today we say, we're white but we're ugly. We say the opposite of I'm black but I'm beautiful. So what happens, this mind frame, over time, creates, a person all of a sudden gives up, and he doesn't reach his potential, and then he starts saying, look at me, why am I living like this? Look at my mazel. He starts blaming on his mazel, etc. At the end of the day, it's just because you didn't focus on the good. And that's unfortunately, especially when things get tough in a person's life, the not good is going to be intensity. That means it's not like the spotlight effect is not on something, it's on the negative that's bothering you. That negative thing is basically in 20D. So a person fears running out of money. It could be a person he grew up with a childhood where his mother was very nervous. Like that, not that ever happens, right? And the mother says, "Oh my God, how are we going to pay the bills? How are we going to pay the child remembers all these memories. So when he gets older, what does he say? How am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to pay? Because it remembers these and it stores these things. So it's not a joke. So what we have to do is sometimes we've engraved negative patterns so bad, and what happens, unless we create new habits, we're stuck in those negative patterns. And you see people are stuck in habits. Not that they don't know what to do. In rehab, I constantly tell people, two people have the same exact problem. One guy has an opiate addiction, another guy has an opiate addiction. They both have a big ego. They admit, we both have a big ego, we're very arrogant, that's where we've got this addiction. So I told this guy, addict A, to explain to addict B how he can get out of his problem. You know what addict A tells addict B? You have to be humble, you have to do the 12 steps, you have to, you can't expect everything in life, you have to take it easy, but like telling him like he's ready, he's been counseling for 10 years. But he himself can't do it. How come he himself, if he's got the information, why can't he just tell him what to do? If it's so easy, right? Sometimes we give advice to other people, yet when we have to take it, we can't do it. Because our story contradicts reality. You understand? It's not the facts, it's the story. People begin to tell me, what happens if I fail? So I tell them, write a book on how to be miserable. People are always looking, they're already looking to fail. It's an amazing thing. What happens when I fail? Why would you say that? Why would you say, what happens when I fail? What defeat's coming out of your mouth and you expect to win? Why are you talking like this? What happens if it doesn't work out? What happens if I lose my money? What happens if the diet doesn't work? What happens if she doesn't work? Why are you talking? Because you're programmed to talk like this. Now, I as an outsider see this, and this is a dysfunctional thinking pattern. So I realize that, you can shove a bunch of Torah down to people, but unless they have a clear head and they're able to understand it and process it, it doesn't work. Why, you have people that are studying all day long in yeshiva, and they become heroin addicts, God forbid. How could that be? He's all day long is learning. Or how could there be very, very, very religious people all day long and they're not, and they become drug addicts or they become other things? It's because they have other things on their mind that doesn't allow the information to come in. That's what Rabbi Nachman said, and that's my focus is really, let's empty the mind. So once the mind is empty, then you can have new beliefs, new patterns, and create new things. And I realize this is a pattern, because I said, how come nobody's we know what to do, we know what we have to do, but why is it so hard? It's because there's a contradicting story that's stopping reality. Very important concept, because if you don't understand this concept, any little thing that's going to happen, you're going to focus on it, and then you're going to become that story. And that's what happens. So that's why I created the singles app, so the singles website, because I want to show that there's going to be plenty of singles. It's just a distorted reality saying there's no singles 1,000 times, so that becomes your belief, and then you don't have motivation to go on a date anymore. You say, people, I don't have motivation to go on a date. But how about this guy could be your husband? No, I went out on 10 dates, it's the same thing. Where are we going with this story and this behavior? Where do you think you're going to end up? Where are you going to end up? So these are the patterns that I'm realizing, and I took it all from negative thinking patterns. That's what we speak so much about. And I realized no other rabbi is really doing this work on telling people, you got to clear your mind. But Rabbi Nachman said it very clearly. He says the sole reason people are distant from God and why they don't draw closer to Him is because they have a full head. They don't have yeshuva dat. They can't control their mind. That's the only reason. Not because you're this, not because you're that, not because of that. Because you have something else in your head that created that reality and that's not allowing you to receive. So a parachute only open, a mind is like a parachute. It only works when it's open. Right? If it's closed mind, and meanwhile you can have such a better life. That's what we're trying to talk. So let's talk a little bit about Azamra. Okay, so now we understand how your brain works. It's working that you basically, if you don't fight it, if you don't start practicing happiness, that means you can't say tomorrow, you know what, I'm waiting to get married to be happy. I'm waiting to get this car to be happy. I'm waiting for this to be happy. People say that all the time. And when you're saying that, basically, you're saying, God, it's not enough what you've given me right now. I'm not really happy with what you have right now. But once I get that, I'll be happy. And then once you get that, what's going to happen? If I get that, I'll be happy. You see, it's a rat race. That's what the Yetzer Hara creates. He creates an illusion that if you get one more thing, you'll be happy, one more thing. And then he just makes you run. Where are you running? Nowhere. So the only way to fix this is by how? Breaking the thought pattern and practicing happiness now, not chasing happiness. Chasing, you might be chasing it for a long time. What happens when you chase happiness? You're going to end up with a broken heart and a broken spirit. You see people, what happened? No, I can't. Life's too tough for me. Why is life too tough for you? Because you're focusing on what's wrong. And that's what happens. It makes you depressed. That's really the key. That's really the key to depression. That's why the Gemara says, who's wealthy? One who's happy with what his lot is. See, I knew that. So I said, I have to be able to focus on what I focus. So I wake up in the morning, I start with massive gratitude. Pump gratitude oxygen like it's going to kill me, so much gratitude. So when you go through the day, you look at things and they bounce right off of you. Negativity bounces off of you. But if you don't have gratitude, any negativity sticks on you like Velcro. So there's no easy way here. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to get close to our Creator and basically pump massive happiness, gratitude for everything you have. Because if not, whatever you don't have is going to catch up on you, and it's going to create that reality. Okay? That's the first part. So Rabbi Nachman says here in this concept of Azamra, which is now we understand the science of it. So the main thing is here is we have to create a new story, and we have to divorce the story and marry the truth. You got to get a divorce from the past, because it's all just memory, it's all just program. It's just like a habit that was created by doing something repetitive. Okay? And not only does that story create repetitive, but that story also stresses you out. It's not just like a story, you watch a movie, you go home from the movie. That story, that movie, is making you have cortisol, it's making you stressed out, and it's killing your brain cells from creating something new. Creating a new story. You understand? It's not just like, okay, this is my story, I'll be okay. It won't allow you to create a new story. That's what the Yetzer Hara does to a person. It creates ultimate destruction. So why did Rabbi Nachman say lesson Azamra is so important? Why did he say it was so important? Because he knew. He knew what people were going to go through. He knew that we're going to be in a very, very, very dark world. It's full of rectifications, this world. If it's not one thing, it's another. I always tell people, either you're in a problem, you just got out of a problem, or you're about to go into one. This is life. This is life. And if you understand this, you enjoy the good, you appreciate the good, and you're able to focus. Because you know what? Okay, I have 2 problems, but I have 8 things that are going great for me. So what's the difference between one guy and another guy? Why is this guy on clonopins and antidepressants and another guy's happy? Because he's able to shift his focus on what's good in his life, on what's right in his life. And that guy, his mind is spiraling out of control. So you get depressed, you don't show up to work, etc., etc. And Rabbi Nachman tackled depression more than anybody. Because if I could tell you, there's not one person in addiction that didn't get there unless he was depressed. Not one person in addiction that did not get through the door because he was happy. Nobody came and said, I just want to hang out with a bunch of addicts. Nobody comes in like that. They don't come. They come in there with depression. They say there's no purpose to live. There's no reason to live. 21-year-old, 25-year-olds telling you there's no reason to live. I said, where have you lived? You haven't even lived. It's because they had trauma, etc. God forbid, 20-year-old girl in the Hasidic community, people are dying. Maybe 4 or 5 suicides already in New York. Not people under 30. So this is a scary thing. If you don't care, if you're not careful on what you focus on every single day, life is going to drag you down. The Yetzer Hara is going to eat you up alive. And that's why most people are walking around with their heads down. So listen what he says here. A person has to be very careful to follow this lesson, because this is the fundamental practice and the major foundation of whoever wants to draw close to God, or to even live a life of any kind of tranquility. You have to follow this teaching. This is the fundamental to everything. Since most people who are far away from God are only like this because they are sad and depressed. And the only reason they're depressed and discouraged is because what they feel about themselves and the enormity of their sins or their failures. People don't understand. You have to fail in life. It's part of life. Where does success come from? Success comes from good judgment. Good judgment comes from experience. Experience comes from failure. How do you get experience in your life? Failure. The only way to get experience in your life is through failure. There's no other way. It's the only way. So if you don't have the failure, you don't have the experience. Right? If you don't have the experience, you don't have the good judgment. And from the good judgment, you have success. That's the formula. So if we're not able to tackle these dark days and take those days as learning lessons, then we start saying I'm the problem. Then the Yetzer Hara won. Because now he's got you blaming yourself. So people say, I'm not good enough for that guy. I'm not good enough for this person. I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to succeed. And this kills your self-worth. It kills your confidence. It kills your self-worth. And at the end of the day, you settle for what you don't want. And this is why today, Rabbi Twersky said that all mental problems today come from a lack of self-confidence and a lack of self-worth. And it's a problem that we had, that we pay a price for it. Why do we pay a price for it? We spoke about the grasshopper analogy. When the Jew says we're grasshoppers, and we're also grasshoppers in their eyes. And the mistake was, who told you were grasshoppers in their eyes? That was an emotional thing to say. Maybe you could have been kings. Why did you say you were grasshoppers in somebody else's eyes? So people start saying, not only am I a grasshopper, but everybody else thinks I'm a grasshopper. For no reason. It's a story. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's just a story. So he says here, and also this concept of people being perfect, being a perfectionist. I tell people all the time, every single class that I do, I make at least 7 mistakes. Every class, I make 7 mistakes. Sometimes, if I'm tired, I make 10 mistakes. And I accept it, and I'm happy, and I said, listen, there's no perfect human being. I'm going to make mistakes. This mentality of making mistakes is wonderful, because at the end of the day, there's no pressure on you. You try, if it makes a mistake, you make a mistake. That's self-confidence. You can make a mistake, and you don't care. Perfectionists don't want to make mistakes, so you know what happens? They never try anything in their life. If it's not perfect, I'm not going to try it. Okay, so stay in the corner and and do nothing in your life because you're searching for perfection. It's really the ego. So what? You make a mistake, big deal. Who are you not to make a mistake? I tell people, who are you not to make a mistake? So that's really arrogance. And that arrogance is really not allowing you to do anything in life. So that's also a reverse Azamra. A reverse Azamra means I have no good points. I have negative self-speech. That's the reverse of Azamra. So Rabbi Nachman says here that not only what happens when a person starts having negative self-speech and he starts looking at everything wrong in his life, then he's going to walk outside the door and he's going to start becoming a butcher. Look at that guy. He's no good. That guy's no good. That guy's no good. You have to love yourself first before you love somebody else. If you don't love yourself, you're not going to love anybody else. Principle teaching. So usually people that are jealous about other people and they're complaining about other people, they don't love themselves. They don't love themselves. They hate themselves. So it's easy just to dump the garbage on other people. And what do all day long? They look at somebody, I got some garbage for you. Where can I load it? And they just give you all the garbage that they want. And that's not having self-worth. That's not having self-worth. So Rabbi Nachman said here in this beautiful teaching that you're going to have this issue, that you're going to have to find the good points in yourself. He's going to tell us something, that in order for a person to make music, right? How do you make music in life? You have to take a good note from a bad note, right? A good musician extracts a good note from a bad note, right? If you don't have a bad note, you can't make music. So if you don't have sins, you can never make music. You understand? Without the person's sins, which is they're embarrassed to talk to God, they're embarrassed to have a relationship with God because they have a perception. How can I come to God now? Look all I've done. I didn't keep Shabbat. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. So all of a sudden, they don't come closer to God because they think of all the sins that they've done. All the sins that they've done. So what happens? That doesn't give them the opportunity to come close to God. But you don't realize it, that without the sins, you can't even make music. Without the bad in your life, you can't even make music. So the bad, your job in life is not to hedge the bad, it's to find the good in the bad. It's to find the good, that whatever you think is negative in your life, that's your job, to find the good points, nikudat tovot. That's why Azamra means I will sing. And this is especially very tough for us when we wake up in the morning. Because what happens when you wake up in the morning? The first thing you're going to think about, what happens when a person wakes up in the morning? It says when a person wakes up in the morning, what do we have to do? We have to awaken the darkness. We have to awaken the dawn. What do we have? We have to awaken the darkness. How do you wake up in the morning? Oh, I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do this. I got to deal with my ex-wife. I'm going back to sleep. Going back to sleep. I'd rather go back to sleep than deal with today. Snooze button. What happens? The enormity of the heaviness of the day catches up on you and it doesn't allow you to get out of bed. How come there's snooze buttons? Because people think, you know what, it's not worth it. Let me just go back to sleep. Some people, they just don't want to get out of bed. So what do we have to do in those situations? We have to start looking at the good points. Okay, I know it's going to be a rough day, but at least I have this meeting at 10 o'clock that I can get a job. I have an interview at 10 o'clock, and maybe they're not going to hire me because they never hired anybody else. And you have to work and work and work and work and work until you find good. You have to extract it like a toothache. You have to extract it. The darkest times of my life that I've had, those were the days that I had to do a lot of looking. Once you start looking and once you start finding, that's when the turnaround begins. You understand? Because you're going to get through darkness in your life for a reason. So you're able to go and search for light. That's why Azamra means I will sing. Think about an interview. When a person goes on an interview, what does he have on his interview? He says, lazy, I won't wake up on time, not very social. Would you say that in an interview? Would you say that on a resume? Would you say, terrible worker, hates everybody, just doing it to pay his bills, etc., etc., etc.? That's exactly what people say. But when would you go on an interview in front of God with that kind of resume? No, you wouldn't. But you're thinking that way. You're thinking that way. You shouldn't think that way. So Rabbi Nachman knew this was the problem to this generation. The lack of finding good. I'm telling you, it's all a mirage. How do you know God doesn't want you to come close to Him? Because you sin. How do you know God calls you to sin? You know the Jews, God calls the Jews to sin with the Egel, with the golden calf. He calls them to sin. Sometimes a person is put in a situation where he loses his dot only to get stronger. So there's sometimes in life that there's nothing you could do. But what do you have to do? You have to get up. So what is he saying here? So he says here, once a person starts judging himself favorably, even if the guy starts judging favorably, when you start judging yourself favorably, then all of a sudden you feel much better about yourself. You don't start having this perfection concept. I know many people that are not trying businesses, they're not trying things only because they're not judging themselves favorably. So what does he say here? By finding positive in yourself, you know what happens? You start initiating the process. You start initiating the process of a comeback. That's how you're supposed to start. You start looking. There was a story of a guy in the town in Uman. There was a house that was completely burnt down to the ground. So what happened? One of the guys was sitting there looking for rubble, and the guys were like, "What are you looking for? The house is burnt down completely. What are you looking for rubble for? It's burnt down. There's nothing there." Rabbi Nachman's student, told him, "You see the way this guy's looking? Even though his house is burnt down, even though his life is completely destroyed, you know what he's doing? He's still trying to salvage anything good." That's the story of your life. When you see everything that's completely a mess, when you sit there and you see your life as completely collapsed, that's when you're supposed to go digging. Not complaining, digging. Just like that guy, just like that analogy. That's what God wants from you. Because in order to repair, you have to sometimes destroy. If something has no foundation, Hashem sometimes destroys it. Because He's doing you a favor. To what? To rebuild it. So what does He do? Just like that guy was sitting there digging, and the whole place was burnt down. That's exactly what a person has to do, is find the good in whatever he sees. So Rabbi Nachman passed away, and Rabbi Nachman says there was a few people they were complaining to him. Look what that guy's doing. Look what that guy's doing. See, the difference between Chabad and Breslev. Chabad has a ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha. They love everybody. Breslev the difference between Breslev and Chabad, Breslev looks at the good in everybody. We're programmed in Breslev to look at the good in everybody, even if the guy's evil. Even if the guy's a Rasha, we are programmed to look at the good in everybody. Chabad just takes everybody in. Thailand, this. Breslev, were not only did Rabbi Nachman program people in Breslev, that's why you see they're all happy. Why are all the Breslevers happy? They're always dancing. Because they're always singing. Look what I have, Hashem. They're singing with what they have. Everybody's looking. Why are these crazy people happy all the time? Because we're programmed to look at the good in our lives, not look at what's not good in our lives. That's the way they program you in Breslev. Look, a baby. This is what you focus on. This is what you focus on. And this is what you're going to sing. So when you're programmed already on this Azamra concept, you have a bad day, what do you say? I'm black, but I'm beautiful. I'm coming to shul, even if I sin, I'm still coming. I'm black, I had a bad day, I screamed at my wife, I'm black, but I'm beautiful. She'll give you a black eye, but you're black. This is a mentality because the only reason why people quit is because they're focusing on their failures, not on their successes. That's why. That's the only reason. There's no other reason. There's no other reason. You can go, and if a person does not find the good in himself, you know what's going to happen? He's going to pay $300 an hour to go see a therapist. And what is the therapist going to tell him? Focus on the good in your life. What do you think the therapist is going to tell you? What a chamor you are? Right? He's not going to tell you that. What is the therapist going to tell you? Isn't that good in your life? How's your children? Is that good in your life? Yes. How's your wife? Okay, that could be better. How's this? What do? They're extracting the good in your life. So you walk out of there saying, you know what? I feel much better. What were you doing? What were you doing with the therapist the whole time? What were you doing? What was the whole thing? You were extracting the good in your life. The therapist was showing you, look, when you look at the black, you get very sad. But when you look at the white, you get much happier. The therapist was only telling you and charging you $300 an hour just to tell you, don't focus on the cup half empty, focus on the cup half full. Come back next week and we'll do a second round of this. And then third round of this. This is what happens. But what is it all? Negligence. It's negligence on a person seeing the negative in his life. Because his brain is programmed that way. So now you understand that it's not something that's going to happen. You don't catch happiness. You have to create it. By looking at something, by focusing on, just like you don't catch a depression either. How do you catch a depression? By looking at things the wrong way, focusing on everything that's wrong in your life, focusing on what's missing. So Azamra, whenever a person, the practical tool for this Torah is, whenever a person sees that things are not going good for him, what do you have to do? You have to start making a quick shift on Azamra. What do you have to do? I'm going to focus on whatever I have. That's why every time, the biggest people, who makes the comeback the quickest, is the guy who's able to recover from not butchering himself. And what happens when people butcher themselves? Unfortunately, they end up with the wrong person. Many times, no self-confidence, you end up with the wrong person, because the person doesn't value himself. What happens when a person, unfortunately, once you start having negative emotions, suppressed emotions, you're angry at yourself, not letting yourself go, not forgiving yourself. Many people don't forgive themselves. Those built-in emotions, what happens? When a person what is sickness? What is a disease? Dis-ease. There's a lack of harmony in the four elements. We know if a person has a disease, God forbid, there's a dis-ease. There's not ease. There's not homeostasis in the four elements. They're not in line. Anytime a person's sick in some area of his area, what happens? That particular area of his life, that particular part of his life, he's missing light. Anytime you're sick in a particular area, you're missing light in that area. Because technically when you're healthy, it means you have light. Everything's working. But when you're sick, it creates a what? A halal. Halal means halal. It's empty. That light area of your life is empty. So, we already know the stress, all the emotional stress people are going through, and that's causing a lot of, God forbid, sicknesses, suppressed emotions. It's all because that all of a sudden, the negative self-speech, what happens? It starts, all of a sudden, you start feeling it. You start feeling it, and when you start feeling it, that's where all the sickness comes from. You have to understand, Rabbi Brody says something very beautiful. He said, God created you with a thumbprint. Your thumb is completely different than his. Everybody has a different thumb. That means everybody has a completely different mission in this world. Your mission has nothing to do with his mission, and your thumb is completely separate. So if a person's job is in life is to take his soul and able to elevate his soul. How? By using his brain to say, I can do this. That's why the whole point is, if a person has greatness, where does greatness come from? Greatness comes from your soul. You have greatness in your soul. So a person has built-in greatness, and he's talking like a grasshopper. What do you do with that? What do you do with the person? What do you do with a kid that's negative, speaking negative? Or what do you do with a kid that's all day long he's telling you what he doesn't have in his life? What do? You call him a spoiled kid. You don't have this? Let me take something else away from you. Let me take stuff away from you. People that complain, the problem with complaining, you can be very, very religious and be a very bad complainer, and it's like, it doesn't match. The outfit doesn't match the personality. The number one thing you have to focus on is gratitude. It's gratitude on focusing on what a person has. And unfortunately, I say people, how many times, do you believe my mazal is good? Why wouldn't your mazal be good? Why wouldn't your mazal be good? No, because every time I touch things, I fail. Do you think about failing before you do it? Yes, because I failed before. What does that have to do with your mazal? It has to do with your thinking. Your thinking, your brain is killing you. Your pattern of thinking is killing you. Rabbi Nachman says here, there's something very beautiful here, sir. So he says, if a person is going to judge everybody negatively, this is also something to cope with our spouses or family members. So people tell me, what do you do with toxic people in your family, or with toxic people that you deal with? Yes, everybody's got them. There's 12 eggs in a carton. Everybody's got them. Somebody's going to be toxic in your family. You're just going to have, your job in life is to focus on his good points. You know what? Okay, he's this, but at least he does this good. There's got to be something that the guy does good. He had to do something good. Something he must have done good. I know she's shaking her head back, but you shake it the right way. That's the Rabbi Nachman program is. Because what happens when a person speaks bad about somebody, what is he doing? He becomes partners with the Satan to open up a case for him. Now, if you judge the guy favorably, because remember, it takes 2 witnesses to butcher a guy. 2 witnesses it takes for a person to get hit. Not 1. So what happens? All of a sudden, when a person says, this guy should be punished, you know what happens? When train the good, this guy should be punished, you know what happens? They open up your books. Oh, really? He should be punished? Let me see your books. Let me see how good you are. You know what the difference is between one person, Rabbi Akiva's prayer, and Rabbi Eliezer's prayer? They both were of a higher caliber. Why did one prayer go up and the other one? Because this guy was very easygoing. When a person's trained to look at the good, not only does he build confidence, but he's able to see the good in people. He's able to see the good in people. When you're able to see the good in people, not only you are responsible for that guy doing tshuva. It's very difficult. It's not an easy thing. I'm not telling you this is an easy thing. Why? Because the associations you have with the person are conflicting you. But if you were looking at it as a third party, you would never have such hatred. You understand the problem? It's the associations. It's the story that created you to see that guy that way. But if we believe that God can create the world every single day brand new, why can't we look at somebody completely different? That's why one of the things in the Torah says, judge a person favorably. So this is exactly what he's telling us. Because otherwise, if we don't have this Azamra concept, you know what's going to happen? We're going to end up depressed. And the Yetzer Hara's number one job in life is to keep you depressed. That's his job. Because once you're depressed, it's the biggest sin in the Torah to be depressed. You can eat all the kosher food in the world, you can keep all the Shabbats in the world, but if a person's depressed, he's on the other side. He's not even in the game. He's not even in the game. That's the sin of it. That's why Rabbi Nachman focused so much of it. So there was one time that a guy comes up to Rabbi Nachman and says, listen, I want to come closer to you. So Rabbi Nachman says, I have nothing to say to you. You're completely wicked. I can't help you. You're completely wicked. Right? The man was startled. He says, but I still tried to draw myself to holiness. I tried. He objected. He says, yeah, but it's not really. You don't do such a good job. Right? And then again the man started pressing him and says, listen, I do this, I do this. He says, you're still wicked. So what happened? The guy continued and continued to talk about what was good about him. And you see, I told you had something good in you. You see, the guy was telling him he had negative self-speech, but eventually, by telling him he's no good, he aroused all the good points in himself, and he realized that he was good at the end of the day. You understand? So sometimes this is our fight. This is our fight. This is something that we have to teach. We have to deal with. And he says, when a person plays an instrument, he collects and gathers with his hands the good ruach from the ruach of depression. Just like a musician is able to sift one note from the other. He sifts one note from the other. That's exactly the difference between you having a good day and not having a good day. What's the difference between you having a good day and not having a good day? Is whether you're able to extract the good from the bad. Just like a musician. The difference between you making a happy song, coming home with a happy song, or coming home with a sad tune, is whether a person is able to extract the good from the bad. That's your job in life. A person's job in life is to be in the extraction business. It's not going to come to you. It doesn't come to your happiness. Don't look for it. It's not going to come to you. You have to start practicing it. Practicing by being happy right now. And how do we do that? Because he's saying here, it's the only way is to draw all the negativity you have, even the sins you have, and draw them in. And he said here, and this is exactly why a person who's a chazan, if he's not able to find the good in the people, he can't be a chazan. Why? Because he looks at the negative in people, and he can't raise the prayer up. So a person who's a chazan has to be a person that loves everybody. Because if the guy's a butcher, what happens? He should be butchering meat. If he won't be able to elevate the prayer. Because what happens? He doesn't see the good in people. So if he doesn't see the good in people, he's not going to be able to extract the prayer upstairs. You understand? So Breslev, we're very careful what chazan we pick. We don't want to pick an angry guy who, every time somebody says hi, the wrong look to him, you start screaming at him. You don't want to pick that chazan, because that guy won't able to elevate the prayers, because he doesn't have the ability to extract. And this is exactly what the koach of Moshe Rabbeinu was. What was Moshe Rabbeinu? What was he known for? Always defending the Jews. What do you want from them, God? They had no what? Moshe Rabbeinu was an expert at always finding the good in the Jews. Noach really didn't, what did Noach do? He really didn't stand up for it. Why did Hashem like Moshe Rabbeinu? Because Moshe Rabbeinu was the one to always defend them. And what did Moshe Rabbeinu says? If you don't blot them, blot me out. Don't put me in the Torah. He went down with the team. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu was the greatest. He didn't just say, if I'm good, but they're not good. He went down with the team. That's what's important. And this is exactly what a person has to do. When he wakes up in the morning, he has to sing. This is the aspect of, I will sing to God be'odi, with the little bit that I got. So there's no reason for a person, God forbid, to be depressed. Whenever he's depressed is because he's not looking at the light in his life. And the only way to make that turnaround, you can take all the pills you want. You could talk to all the therapists, but until you start until you start extracting the good, you will never be able to get the light. Because once you once a person sees good from darkness, you know what happens? That's the beginning of his light. When we see a moon, when a person sees a moon, before they sanctify a moon, you know what they do? Even if the moon is this small, why? Because the moon is known to be the faith. Right? What is the moon known today? Because it goes up and down. One day it's full, and one day it has barely. So the minute we see the moon, just a little bit of good, that's when we say sanctify it. So the same thing when a person has to see. He sees he could be in his business. And I practice this in business. I practice this in everything. Anytime that I had tremendous stress, I had to change my focus completely to the good. Because if you focus on what's wrong, you're going to get drained out. It's going to bury you alive. What's wrong? And all it is basically, it's just a matter of focus. And wouldn't you think if a person has a kid, wouldn't the father say to the kid, listen, why are you focusing on what you don't have? Why are you always complaining about what you don't have? We see all these people. Why are you always complaining about what you don't have? That's a reverse Azamra, and those people, instead of getting out of the mess, they stay there. and they get stress, and they get all kinds of anxiety because they don't believe in the new day. So we know what to do, and that's the key. That's the key here. So again, once we know what our self-worth is, once a person believes in himself, he starts extracting the good in himself, then he's going to have self-worth, then he's going to have a lot of confidence. Confidence is created like this. So what? I failed 5 times, I'm going to try again. We don't give up. Breslev, there's no such thing as a person giving up. It's not unheard of. I never heard, Breslev guys give up? It's not even in the vocabulary. You can't even say that word. It's shunned completely. It's shunned completely. So we're known when a person has a fall, okay, put in the formula of Azamra. That's it. Focus on Azamra. Then we start doing inventory on what we have. And then from that inventory, what we have, we elevate the good. Because what happens the minute we see the negative from happiness, you know what happens? The minute we make that turn, all of a sudden, what do? We bring Hashem into our lives. Right? The minute you see something from a negative to a positive, what do? You bring Hashem into your life. So this is a formula that I want everybody to practice on. And this will get rid of all limitations. This is the easiest way to get out of a problem. This formula is a fundamental teaching. That means if something's going wrong, chances are you're not looking at the good. If you have a toxic partner that's constantly bombarding you with negativity, your job is to do 2 things. You could focus on what they're not doing for you, or you can focus on what they're doing for you. It's up to you. One of them is going to make you miserable, give you anxiety, make you sick, and go to the doctor. The other one will say, you know what? That's my job, Hashem. I just have to find, you gave me this particular person. Either, if you have to get a divorce, you have to get a divorce. But if you could try to work it out, you have to start extracting the good. Because believe it or not, when you have a negative vibe, people see it. You don't even have to talk. When somebody's negative, you feel it in the room already. It gets in your bones. Why? Because your thoughts, they don't just go nowhere. Your thoughts is energy. What is thoughts? Thoughts are energy. So when a person has a negative thought about it, that's what a girl says, look, that girl's looking at me. What are you talking about? She's 20 feet away. But people feel negative energy. So when you throw somebody a positive energy, they feel it. And you can actually make them change. So may we all be zochet to this teaching. This is the fundamental. That start today. That's why I tell people, if everything's going wrong in your life, you need to do a 15-minute journal. 15-minute gratitude journal. It's proven 25% to have a happier life. That means if a person, just to have a 25, forget his bodhidu. If you can't do his bodhidu, just do 15 minutes, scientifically proven. The people that did a 15-minute journal, gratitude journal, were 25% more happier than other people. Look it up. It's scientifically proven. Because this is the only way it happens. You have to create it by your daily habits. All right? That's today's class.